I think when it comes to the peaking of interest, I sort of was very keen on this session because we've got some of the most well-known brands and the leaders from the brands present over here with us in this panel, and they're going to share with us, how our most loved brands, which we have consumed for years and years together and generationally, today they are changing themselves and sort of going omni-channel, and at the same time, keeping their core fundamentals of the product first, and nevertheless sort of adopting various newer practices, which makes their businesses much more in times, more 21st century led, and adopting technology and practices, digital practices, which will help them to get a far bigger outreach and more progressive sphere. So I'm going to start with Mr. Arjun here. Thank you for joining us, sir, today. And we have been consuming your products for years and years at end, and whether it was my grandmother to my mother and now myself who buys the products. But how have you been constantly changing your demeanor in terms of reaching out as customer becomes more younger and they want to consume products in a much more in a more cult form, or in ways which probably are more sustainable? How have you been sort of changing your product lines? How have you been changing the narrative of your product to suit each and every customer over the years?
So, yeah, I think it's a very interesting point that you talk about how consumer buying behavior has changed. But for us, people use our product to pray to God, and I think God has kind of remained constant for the last, I think, 10,000 years. So that's the one good thing about our product is people pray to God, and when they're praying, it's a ritual, they're worshipping, and at that point of time, you need to be present and create an ambience that's ideal for peace of mind and for prayer. Now, the buying behavior in outlets, buying behavior in different locations have changed, but the consumption pattern has more or less remained consistent. Okay. It's a transaction between God and the customer, and we need to be there at that point of time when they're praying. And most of our products kind of revolve around that. But the way they buy the product, the way they indulge with the product has changed over a period of time, and we have adapted accordingly and stayed relevant. So if you go back 100 years ago, the influencer would probably have been the pujari. Today, the influencer is somebody who's on one of your Instagram channels or anything else, who's telling you what to buy and what not to. So the way you create buying behavior has changed, but the consumption of our product has remained more or less consistent and constant.
So therefore, you've been changing your marketing initiatives that you've been taking?
Yeah, where we advertise, how we communicate, how we tell our story keeps changing and evolving over a period of time. But what we're trying to sell, the core value of the product, that we deliver hope, we make sure that the products are sustainable, they're pure, we use the best quality ingredient, that's remained consistent and that's not changed at all.
Sure. And on a more core level, how much of your business has gone, let's say, from how much people are more buying from online? And do you see that while I'm sure the general trade business must have also changed its dynamics, so how have you sort of made your channels all the more progressive in order to ensure that you are present where your customer is?
I think I made the big mistake initially of looking at where my sales came from rather than trying to understand where my customer discovered products. So just to answer your question, the discovery process is a lot more online. The purchase could either be in a marketplace or like Amazon, could be in quick commerce, could be in the Kirana store next door, could be in a Reliance or anywhere else. But the discovery process has evolved quite a bit. So you need to know where your customer is discovering about your product and your category more than where they're buying it eventually. So, we have realized that now, and we've kind of fine-tuned our communication accordingly.
Sure. So I'm going to come back to you and talk more about product lines, but before that I'm going to go on to Mr. Dinesh. Sir, at Mysore Saree Udyog, we've been buying sarees for a very long time, and people in South India, they know particularly here, they know the brand like the back of their hand. It's their go-to place to buy apparel. But how have you sort of kept up in terms of making sure that you were relevant to the customer, even to a young customer who wants to sort of be more fashionable, cooler, more cult in terms of how they want to wear a sari? And today, when I look at a sari, I see those draped saris, which are just very easy to wear because there's no adult there to help us out wear those sarees. So how have you kept up with all these changes and tried to keep the brand more relevant to customer at every age?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here amongst this really august panel. And to answer your question, yes, we have constantly evolved in keeping our product relevant. Like Arjun was saying that, thankfully God is around for the last 10,000 years.
God remains the same.
So it's kind of similar here. So for us, it's just an extension of that. You need ethnic wear products when you're praying, when you're at festivals, or when you're having a big fat Indian wedding. So it's relevant all the time. And how do we make it relevant to all the generations of customers? It's like the same fabric or the same product or the same technique can be used for Indo-Westerns, for saris, and for completely Western products as well. So the craft still remains, right? So in that sense of it, the product is being always made relevant to the customer. And when you come to something like you mentioned, cult, right? So sustainability is a cult today. And if you ask me what can be more sustainable than a sari? A girl buys it at the age of 16 during graduation, probably the first sari, continues to buy saris for her wedding. When she becomes a grandmother, and the grandmother passes down the sari again. Right. So what can be more sustainable? So that's like a cult following.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how have you sort of adopted newer practices in business, whether it's technology, and I know you told me that, you've been adopting technology since the 1980s and so on. But, so how have you sort of made sure that you use the power of technology to reach out to the customer everywhere? And how did you ensure that, you were always sort of, whether it was the back end or the front end, was always technology led for the customer to be able to, as he said, discover you, identify you, and also at the same time at the back end to ensure that, your practices were always well managed?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we started using technology way back in 87. 93, we went on to an ERP. And from there on, our technology journey has always been there in every sphere of business we do. While we have always kept the focus to keep the product and the service very, very authentic and traditional, or everything around that, in order to deliver that product, we have leveraged technology at every phase. So whether it's reaching out to the customer, we try to engage with them at all the touch points, like he said, right from discovering the product or the category, all the way down to making the purchase. And when it comes to the delivering the product, right from the supply chain, like the visibility, a vendor will have visibility right up to the shelf, right? And and even when it comes to the human resources, we deploy a lot of HR technology in order to keep them updated with what is there today. So the vision for deploying technology, even in traditional businesses, has to be really long term, and we have to walk every stakeholder through this to ensure that it is deployed properly and it is successful.
And, I understand because the business is based in Mysore, which is, while it's next to Bangalore, but still, the tech hands might not be as sort of agile as it is. Or probably the talent.
We are located in Bangalore.
Oh, you're located in Bangalore. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that maybe the headquarters were.
Yeah.
But do you find that finding the tech talent that you are looking for and building technologies that are needed for your business is something that you would build in-house, or would you rather just buy technology from outside and then place it in your business?
So I've been very fortunate, like you mentioned, to be in Bangalore. So tech talent was easily available. And we have in fact built the ERP which we are currently using from scratch.
Right.
And
which is in-house.
Which is in-house. I happen to be a stakeholder in that company as well. It's not completely in-house, but the company which runs the entire ERP is fundamentally dependent more on us for the growth. Yeah.
That's very interesting, because this is a new trend that I am seeing today in the business, wherein everybody is building their own technology while they're relying a lot of times on a lot of tech firms, but eventually the controlling part of the technology is in-house. So it's a practice that is almost now becoming the trend in the retail and the FMCG industry today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that, because it's also very critical and important for us to stay well ahead of the market in order to deliver that best experience and that speed at which a customer expects us to serve him. Yeah.
Sure. Vikram, as a consulting organization, you talk to multiple organizations who are doing or at our various stages of the digital transformation journey. And what are the challenges you think that they face when they're actually doing this journey? I mean, we were talking to Aditya Birla Fashions today, and they've built a completely new vertical, which is a tomorrow house of brands, just to sort of disrupt the market and find more cult brands that they wanted to build. So what kind of such practices are you noticing in the market where organizations and large organizations are adopting in order to be relevant and to be doing the right growth journey in years to come?
Yeah, so Ritu, what's happening globally and what's happening in India, there's a huge space, a huge gap right now. In fact, I would think that in India, we are at a very, very nascent stage of actually adopting technology, move from, let's say, traditional retail to, let's say, omni-channel retail. The reason is that, if you look at the entire funnel of acquisition and awareness and then acquisition and then conversion down the line, each has a completely different tech ecosystem around that. Just simplistically putting, let's say, at the awareness level, it's only about, the influencer ecosystem. When you go into the acquisition ecosystem, that's when core technology comes in. There are predictive models, there are licenses to be bought. That's where we are still really fit, kind of much falling back at this point of time. And then when it comes to absolute conversion, there I think the biggest problem is that the business models need to change. So you can't just slap on a technology business model and put it on a traditional business model. That's not going to happen because the entire ecosystem change happens. The way you have to look at the business model itself changes. So that's where the biggest risk, I think, if I may, to answer your question, there's a big risk over there, and then there is an opportunity over there, because the opportunity today is that with omni-channel or with technology, it allows you to scale up your business model from, let's say, a local or regional to a population scale, as we call it in India. And thankfully, the digital public infrastructure or the DPI system, which is there in India, allows you to do that, and probably we are very advanced. So the infrastructure outlay is in our country allows you to do a lot of stuff. But whether brands in the country are taking it forward or not, there's a big jury still out on that. And the biggest issue over there is trying to replicate the traditional business model into a new business model. That's not going to happen. So people will have to really rethink the entire business model differently if you need to approach. There have been internationally, there have been famous cases of brands like Zappos and all completely closing down within 2 years or 3 years. So there is an existential problem which brands will face today, because a lot of new guys will come in and edge out the old brands. So the entire business model has to be rethought, because in many cases the product that you sell is not the product. Like Arjun said, I mean, his major product is hope. Now that's best identified. So you need to really identify what your product is. McDonald's doesn't sell a bunch of burgers, it's selling convenience, KFC sells something else. So you need to really identify what is your product, because the product, the core product may not be scalable, but when you actually look at, give a flavor to that product, that's a scalable. Now, hope is scalable, the product may not be scalable, right? So that's the big issue right now where the risk happens, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right over there, and it's very important to go down to the core of your business and figure out who you're serving. And as of course Mr. Arjun rightly pointed out, that thankfully the gods have not changed, so the business therefore doesn't need to change disruptively. Let me come to you, Mr. Arvind. Now, as we were speaking, sweet shops today are getting more cult in their own way. Today we see, brands who are going all over the place. Even outside India, you see a lot of brands in sweet shops which are there. So as at Anand Sweets, how are you sort of making sure that, I remember meeting somebody from Cadbury's about a year back, and they told me the next thing we want to disrupt is the sweet shop. So they want to do sweets which are related to the sweet shops. So, when you see such disruption around you, how is it that you're changing your business strategy? How is it that you are sort of rethinking your SKUs, whether you want to, and traditionally we've had sweet shops with so many SKUs in it. So how are you sort of changing around your business dynamics in order to make sure that the business is being able to find the right customer at the right time? Sometimes, while I know we talk a lot about disruption and change and innovation, but sometimes the core product itself, is so delightful that you enjoy it that way. Honestly, I've realized that when I had those more fancier mithais, I didn't like them as much as much as I liked them when they were traditionally done. So how are you putting processes and yet maintaining the core fundamental of the product?
Thanks, Ritu, for having me on the panel. Yeah, so I think our business as such has evolved from what it was maybe in the 80s and 90s, where digital was not a big part of our life. I think come 2000s, and although we kept on adding portfolios, we kept on adding new categories, to make ourselves relevant to the audience every now and then. And also, I think since we're a more regional brand located in Bangalore, 2000 saw this influx of people coming in from other parts of India. IT happened to Bangalore. And because of that, we had this whole new population who was all over from India. And again, to be relevant there, we had to bring in tastes from different parts of India and serve it in a way which matches that region. So I think that's where evolution, disruption came in for us in some way, where we kind of moved away from what we were doing and started catering to the whole India palette, I would say. Then as we move forward, the websites happened, online sales happened. We were in fact the early adapters of online sales way back into 2005, 2006, when online wasn't that big. And that really gave us a market pan-India somewhere. That again somewhere disrupted the whole way of how business was done in our category. I think we were the first ones to have a website in the space. Then I moved forward to the delivery business, which came in from 2014 onwards. And how that again helped us to rethink our whole strategy in terms of how the product will last when it travels at 35, 40 minutes, reaches a consumer's house. The consumer consumes after 20 minutes. The product has to have the same emotion as what you have it in our stores. So that called for this, that made us change our whole packaging strategy, the way the product is presented, the way the product travels, the way the product is stored. So I think that happened. And then with Quick Com, we've seen an evolution in the grocery space, where our products have become part of your grocery basket. Right. So I think disruption has happened digitally for us in throughout this whole phase, and it has helped us change our product portfolio accordingly. Today, grocery, on Quick Com, we don't sell 200 products. We sell only 20 products, because that's what fits in. Like I said, it's comfort food for the consumer. We have 350 SKUs in our stores, but everything does not go into all the platforms. So I think disruption has happened at different stages in our business, and I think there's more yet to come.
And since you mentioned on quick commerce, I would love to quickly take it up with you also, Mr. Arjun, in terms of, have you jumped onto the quick commerce wagon, and do you find it to be a good channel for you at this stage, maybe bringing some SKUs? Because, your product itself is also something that, I would not remember buying agarbatti as part of the entire food and grocery thing. So, when it's about to finish only do I realize that, it's going off, and therefore I need to replenish the product. So, does that channel actually help you?
No, anybody here would want to be where our customer is present, right? And if my customer is now shopping on quick commerce, I damn well be there. And I need to be the first product available, because it's an impulse purchase. You are going to go do your puja, and if my agarbatti is not there and something else is there, and that's what they're going to buy. Similarly with Kaju Katli, if Anand's Kaju Katli is not there, they'll buy something else. If that's what I want to eat, right? And our unit purchase values are low, so we definitely are on quick commerce. We're working with each of the quick commerce players to see how we can get their supply chain intact with ours. How do we integrate our tech with their, because none of them actually have the POs integrated, none of that. They're still a long way off. They're more concerned about servicing the market in the front, and the back end headache is with all of us, brands. So we definitely are serious about quick commerce. We want to be there where our customers are, and quite a few of our customers are looking at convenience as well.
Right.
So yeah.
Sure. Lavanya, let me come to you. Nalli Sarees is something that you've lived as a brand, and I remember meeting your father a long time ago, and when he came and talked about, the passion that he brought to Nalli Sarees as an entrepreneur, and now that you are managing it, what has changed for the business in the last, let's say, decade? in terms of how you were operating the business, or it was getting operated to the point now where, we have so many different channels on which people buy. Do you put the same product everywhere, or do you have some product assortments that you create, that you want to sell this on e-commerce, you want to sell this on marketplaces, and this is what goes into the store, high value goods and maybe, average value goods? How do you treat them overall? Which I don't think used to be the case when you had to think, there was a storefront and you didn't have to think about all of that with your product lines.
Thank you for that. So ours is a 100-year-old brand, and my brother and I are actively running it now. And so I spent about 7 years outside the family business as a HBS, Harvard MBA, McKinsey, as a VP at Myntra, so back in the day. 10 years ago that I left that. 2016 I came back to Nalli for my second stint. Started the e-commerce then. When I say started, I meant literally my first hire was one developer, right? And we built it from scratch in 2016. And the ecosystem back then and the mindset of most incumbents, especially brick and mortar retailers, was this channel is not a legitimate channel. It is a high discount driven channel. Who is going to buy a zero discount, high value product like sarees online? All the typical sort of reasons for not wanting to see that. Jump cut to today in 2025, it's a very legitimate channel, and a lot of things have sort of changed to make it what it is today, right? Like e-commerce itself as a sales channel. The first thing I'd start with is like, okay, even before that, what's not changed? What stayed constant? As a brand, we have certain brand values, right? The product is king, customer service is uppermost. We don't do gimmicks, we don't do discounts, right? We've been no discounts since we started, since the inception. And we bring that DNA into this sales channel. Because I am a firm believer that your brand and your consumers matter most. If a channel is not suitable for reaching that customer segment that you want to, following the principles that your brand is known for, then that channel is not for you, right? So we don't shift for the channel to say, okay, 5% discount, new customer discount, 10%. If it doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for us. The cost structures are also fundamentally different. Now in our case, we have our own website. In addition, we list a very small portion of our products on Myntra, but we are kind of debating. It's an ongoing debate, right? As the world sort of evolves and it's so dynamic, like we also need to constantly keep pressure testing our assumptions. But we are still predominantly website driven, our own website driven. The cost structures are different, and so that has a implication on the products that we choose. The consumers that you reach out to via the e-commerce channel also has a impact on the kind of products that we choose. So with our e-commerce channel, we get a significant portion of our customers who are NRI, right? For multiple different reasons, right? Like the dollar, the rupee, that sort of, the rupee is fairly like depreciated for the kind of price, for the kind of quality that people can expect to get. Even with customs, and we have to see with tariffs, but even with customs and everything, it still is worthwhile for a consumer living in, say, the US or Australia, because many of these families and women who buy high value goods can't make a trip to India every year, right? So we've understood this. So if you look at it, like if you go back, right, this is the constant, right? Product is king, knowing your customer, right? And then you will flex and see, okay, within this channel, who is the customer who has a need state that we can reasonably service? What also are the considerations of that particular sales channel? Now in an offline store, it's just a just-in-time inventory system. So we just bring in products, and then it's like you see it on the shelf today, you don't see it tomorrow. Like we constantly, sometimes during Diwali and the high season and wedding season and all, 2 times in a day our stores will do inwards, right? That's how high the inventory turnover is. In offline, in online, you have to shoot every single product. You can't make your turnaround time less than a certain amount, right? unless you have some other kind of technological disruptor, like maybe with AI, maybe the rendering software gets so strong that it becomes very easy for you to sort of like shoot, upload, and the time from invert to shelf can reduce. But right now it's a few days, because you can shoot X number of products. We've tried the rendering software. We don't think that it does justice, but we will continue to keep seeing what exists out there. So one is that, right, the turnaround time. Two is also the cost, right, because there's a cost. If you use a model, if you use a mannequin, it has a different cost structure. Then third is like, do you buy in depth, right, which is what it makes sense for you to do in e-commerce. But Nalli is not about that. We are about width, right, and then you have a SKU depth of 1. So if you have a SKU depth of 1, are you really going to load the entire cost of the photo shoot on that saree? Now you'll shoot it, cool, that's fine. Are you choosing to have that as a captive inventory which is going to exist in your warehouse that services only e-commerce, or are you going to treat your stores like Omni-Channel, which means that you'll go to all of this trouble, you'll shoot that one saree, it can sell out here, it can sell out in the store. So now you'll have to bake in that 30% or 40% or 50% of probability per product for it to sell out in the store, even though you've incurred the costs here. So all of these is the journey of a business owner, right? You'll go through it, you'll work out the math, you'll look at it, but the only way is through experimentation, right? And then you'll figure out who the right audience is, you'll figure out what the right products are, you'll try to do it in a way which is profitable, right? Unless you're playing the valuation game, in which case it's a different set of metrics you go for.
Sure. No, I think that you brought a good view to this, and sort of when you do the maths in that way. So, just for my understanding, and this is to actually all of you, how much of your business is actually moved online? And therefore, the kind of resource deployment that is required to manage your online business, is it right now worth the ROI that you're getting out of it? And because it may or may not be the right ROI for you, so therefore, what is your best strategy in resource deployment that has worked for you?
Yeah, firstly, I made the big mistake, like what Vikram said about 6-7 years ago, about trying to think that the online business is an extension of my traditional business. And it didn't work, I didn't go anywhere, I ended up spending a lot of money. Today it's completely independent, it runs as a completely independent profit center and a unit, segregated top-down. I'm the only one who's directly in synergy. Even supply chain is separated out, manufacturing locations are segregated. We are able to get a lot more flexibility, and we're able to get access to market a lot quicker as well. And we're able to also customize our products much, much better. So we have something called Create Your Own Incense Online, which we would not have done if we were not independent as an organization for the e-commerce channel. So today, any one of you here can go make 1 million combinations and create your own agarbatti for your prayer. And those options were not available if we had made that an extension of our traditional product. So yeah, the ROI calculations are independent, just like what the lady from Nalli mentioned. Unless you are profitable, it's not going to sustain, and it is left to us business owners. How do we make it sustainable and profitable in the long term? There is a brand investment that you're going to do. There is always a debate between performance and branding. Which budget do I take money from? Do I take it from my media budget that I'm going to spend on television, or where do I find the money for digital? Because it's not going to pay for itself upfront, but over a period of time, it does make sense. And to answer your question, for us, it's in decimal points what business we're doing online, but we see a long future ahead and a big opportunity to grow from where we are today.
Yeah, and I was about to ask some data only on this. So how much of your business actually comes from as an Omni-Channel company?
Like I said, it's in decimal point, like 0.5, 1% or something like that. It's negligible today. Yeah.
Right, but you're putting more resources in order to make sure that it increases.
I wouldn't say more resources. I'm putting a lot of effort because my customer is spending time there.
Right.
I need to be where my customer is, right? The discovery, like what he mentioned, the discovery funnel starts today from online. The virtual world is where my customers are discovering new things. So I need to be present there. Selling is incidental after that.
So, sorry, I'll just come back to you. So if you've seen recently the trend on Instagram, you've seen a flux of astrological predictions being made. It's almost not funny to see how much of it is happening right now, which never used to happen 6 months back also. So does this lend your business to increase when, these practices are going on? I mean, I thought the Camphor people will run out of Camphor. The amount of Camphor is being suggested to use it.
No, I know all the trend started during COVID when people started to pray a lot more, and you know the reasons for that. So we've started our own astro services as well. It's called astropuja.com.
Yeah,
so
Astro talks to so many today.
Yeah, there are about 6 big astro players. We are the 7th one entering the fray now. So we have puja services through Astro as well. You can all go visit and then find out your future as well, and then pray with Cycle Agarbatti after that. So, yeah.
I think the God business is the best business. I mean, you leave aside the communist world, then you've got 100% strike rate. But besides that, Ritu, interesting you asked that question. I mean, we've got some data working with various clients. And I'm happy that Arjun said it so candidly. Even if you look at large categories, and what do you think of, let's say spectacles, where lens card is there. In that category also today, the online business accounts for less than 5 or 7% of their total volumes. I think the issue over here is that, and that would be at the higher level. So even today, online is not contributing to a significant number, and rightly so. It will be all decimal or 1%. The mistake probably which happens right now is to look at online or any other omni-channel business as a separate line. It's not like that. I think you have to look at it in a integrated manner. So, for example, it depends on what category you have. I mean, click and collect works globally as a very good model, right? And so when you do a click and collect model, where do you then categorize it? Do you categorize it at online or offline? And it has, if you have a luxury, I mean, one of my businesses does a complete luxury product sale. There it's a direct to sale, it's a D2C business. So you can 100% identify that as that. But generally, in click and collect is the model if it's a consumer durable model. Of course, for mass brands is something else. So to answer your specific questions, today it's not more than 2 or 3% for the best of the brands. All the others that you mentioned about Instagram, they are, kind of a fleeting this thing. It comes in, goes off the next day. That's what happens. Right
no, but now. What I was asking you, Mr. Ranga, is this vertical commerce for you? Being selling your product on Astro Talk or Astro Services. So is this like vertical commerce where you can actually sell your products?
No, services business is different, product business is different.
No, services anyway you don't need to get into.
I'm in services. I just told you can get your Kundali done and all that right now in my website.
Oh, okay.
That's what I said, Astro Puja.
So you made that extension
already. Yeah, we've already done that. So with Puja services, which nobody else has. So you can we'll tell you what your problem is and also give you the solution. So right now, most of them just tell you what your problem is.
But this was not part of your business before?
No, it was not what my grandfather started, no. Oh. This is something that started post-COVID.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. Yeah, so that's what new integration for you that is happening. Yeah.
Apart from doing the puja with Cycle Agarbatti, you need to include sarees from Nalli and MSU and Mithai from Anand for the same puja.
Yeah, my entire wedding shopping was in Nalli anyway, so that was 25 years ago.
So, do you feel that, you see what Zara did. So they said that we are not going to sell on any channel, but we'll sell on Zara.in in India, which is their own website that they created for buying. So do you think for brands who are actually well engraved in the market and their household names, besides being at marketplaces to whatever large or small extent that they do, it's better for them to build their own shop fronts online? For anybody who wants to take it.
Yeah, I can talk on our decision on why we did it. See, for us it was fairly straightforward. It's there are two aspects. There's a branding aspect, right? Because you want to control the brand. There is also an economic aspect to it. I am open, right? But the Mintras and the Ajios of the world have their own listing fees. What that means is that Nalli's DNA has always been about the best quality product, right? At a price that feels honest and fair. Right? And there are a lot of designers, retailers, others in the market. Sabya does beautiful stuff. Raw Mango does phenomenal stuff. Quality-wise, design-wise, it's phenomenal, right? But their entire cost model is something else entirely. We know that, look, they invest a lot into their products and they have extremely high margins. But Nalli's always come from this standpoint of India, our crafts, our artisans have so much to offer. Why should the average everyday woman feel like she has to shell out so much more if she wants a quality product? Our entire DNA and our fundamental philosophy is you shouldn't have to be rich to afford something great, right? Like we want to make that accessible. So we take a very, very, very sort of like lean margin view to things, and we try to say, okay, how can we get more operational efficient? We don't look at, okay, how instead of handloom, let's do it in powerloom, right? We do have sarees, but that's not the thought process. Instead of doing it in silk, let's do blended silk, right? It's not about lower the quality and take it up in margin. It's more about, it's a little bit of like how Walmart does it or Amazon does it. They will negotiate with the vendors. They will look for operational efficiencies. They will look for technological sort of optimizations. They look for every other way in which they can cut through the fat, right? We don't spend massive marketing budgets because then all of that has to get loaded onto the margin. We don't spend on like some fancy looking packaging because all of that has to get loaded onto the margin. We're very strong about, have a very high quality product, make that available to your customer at a fair pricing. Now, in that ecosystem, if someone is like 30% listing fee, it doesn't work for us, right? Or someone is like, okay, 20% listing fee, 18% listing fee, plus, right? It doesn't work for us. So, whether it is from a brand standpoint or from an economic standpoint, I would feel as business owners or as business leaders, it always makes sense to control, right, where your brand, and not to put all your eggs in another like much larger marketplace. The other thing is also, if you look at a lot of the marketplaces, be it Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, it's still fairly discount-centric communication, right? So you being a high-quality player will not be given the kind of voice because you don't hit the kind of metrics that they care about. So unless that changes, it always makes sense for you to build out the channel that you want.
Sure. Sure. You want to add something?
Yeah, like what Vikram said, I think you need to differentiate between what is mass and what is luxury and premium.
Right.
So we are a mass brand. And for me, I want to drive all my business through my website. That's my first choice. And when I do any kind of survey, customers come back and tell me, you don't give any discount on your website. So why will we buy from your website? I'm like, you're buying direct from company. It's fresh product. It comes to you. We have so many different SKUs here that are actually not available anywhere else. But consumers who come to my site, because we are a mass brand that's used every day, of course, quite a few of our premium products sells there, but their first option is company site, I want discount. They compare, so a lot of discovery is happening on our website, but bulk of our e-commerce is now through all the marketplaces and the quick commerce channels. We do have loyal customer base in our cycle.in that buy exclusive products that are actually not available in GT, MTO or on any of the other channels. The Omni-Channel experience again is very unique. I set up 30 stores across the country, set up Omni-Channel again, click and connect, click and buy, come and share, all of that. I've now scaled down to about 8 to 10 stores because we couldn't actually deliver the kind of service that we expected we will be able to. Manage the logistics at the back end, manage the supply the way we wanted to, because we had over 1,000 SKUs in our stores. So we couldn't actually do it in the right way. So we've scaled down to a level with which we can manage now, and then we will slowly start scaling Omni-Channel again. It's not an easy play to do Omni-Channel. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to scale.
No, absolutely. You're right about that. And I think click and collect is more of a high value good formula.
Yeah, another thing which is very important is that it's not, see, like the brands and everybody is evolving, but even there is a huge platform war happening. I mean, Ajio is fighting with, let's say, Click Luxury, and Amazon with Flipkart with Myntra. So they've got their own problems to handle. This whole thing about taking margins and all that is nothing. It's you replicate the whole thing over here. In another 2 years or 4 years down the line, the margins are not going to be so big. They are also going to fight and bring it down. You're going to have, like, for example, a brand like Nalli, a powerful brand like Nalli, for example, would it would occupy a pride of place in one of these platforms over there. But it's all horses for the courses. As we go another 2 or 3 years down the line, things are going to be changing. There are going to be swarms and swarms of these agents. Microsoft has released its pilots and agents which have come in over here. That has a flip side also. As much as people can promote their brands on Omni-Channel, there are competition going to come and de-promote your brand also.
Yeah,
so you need to really worry about that also. So you cannot wish that category away. very clearly, you need to be over there. They've got their own problems. It's all horses for courses. Things are changing. There has to be a digital discipline in your organization all the time. I mean, I would recommend that there has to be a team which spends 2 hours every day doing just this, if nothing else. And that is for survival and not for any other reason. It's existential. Even if you're not on online, you need to have that discipline to understand that market very clearly.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
platform wars are happening today.
Totally. Anand, Arvind, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to go back to the point of online sales in terms of percentages. So I have a very different take to the rest of the crew here. Online forms a very big part of our life at Anand. When I say we have online, we have delivery from our stores on Swiggy, Zomato and these players, which is 20% of our revenue today. We are in the convenience. So why people order on Swiggy, Zomato is for convenience. Secondly, I think e-com in general was amazing until last year. You know, Amazon, Flipkart, we were there on all the portals. What we went as Anand there is, we didn't go, like Lavanya said, on the discounting bandwagon. We went as a gifting brand on these platforms. So we charged a premium, and there was a customer who was willing to buy that. And we did phenomenal sales on all the platforms because we didn't want to go discount, because Anand does not do discounting because we don't believe that our brand needs to do discounting. Come quick commerce, again we see a surge. We see e-com going down drastically, and this whole quick com which is taken up.
Yeah.
But again, there is a flip side to all these platforms is the more you spend, the more you are noticed. So I think that is where like platform fees and so many other things. Like as a brand, regularly we have budgets only for these platforms today. And I think the next 5 years we're going to see more and more disruption in this whole quick com, e-com category.
100%.
And brands have to be relevant to them.
I think verticalization is going to be the big thing that we'll see even in quick commerce. And you know, quick commerce will not really be that quick, apart from maybe groceries and food. It will, in your category, it might actually be a day rather than, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so on. So every vertical e-commerce that you see emerging in quick commerce will come with a very different time frame. I mean, I was talking to a furniture player today, and he said it cannot be less than, we normally take a month to send a furniture item, but it can maximum be 2 days or 3 days. How can I put it in 10 minutes? So,
What a very important concept, what he said, extremely important concept he said. Moment he moved from traditional retail to, let's say, online, the definition of his product changed from mithai or foods to gifting.
Yeah.
So when online, it no longer remains food, it becomes gifting. So that's what I mean, it's horses for the courses. When you go omni-channel, you need to define the concept very clearly. I mean, I would not be buying agarbatti, I would be buying devotion. That's different. So if I buy devotion, I'm at a different level, and then when Arjun connects with me, then I'm going to go and buy that. So on omni-channel, I can go and commoditize, right? Mere ko ek agarbatti de do. But then suddenly over here, when I buy devotion, and then that's what happens when I go to omni-channel. My link is to devotion, and then I buy Arjun's products. Similarly, if I say my link is to gifting, then I go and buy an Anand gifting pack. So I'm not buying food anymore. And then when you do that, then suddenly, and in any case, the food business is different. When I said 4% or 5%, that's in the consumer business. Food business ratings are different when you go to omni-channel, because there it's 20%, 30%. There are people buying food, that's because of Zomato and Flipkart. But the concept changes. It no longer remains a saree, it no longer remains a mithai, it no longer remains something else. It becomes hope, or it becomes gifting, it becomes something else,
now
and then it
they're
takes
more
off.
prescriptive now with Astro services.
Astro Guru is
coming in,
phenomenal. I mean, that category is growing like something. I mean, and there's a service revenue which can, kind of surpass the product revenue going forward.
No, I think the
and that's what omni-channel
service
does.
is actually sort of pushing your products. That's the real takeaway from this. Happy to take some questions from the house. Yes, please. But I'll also come down to a global question which I'm going to ask you. But yes, happy to give the mic to gentlemen first. Mic, please, over there. Quickly, if we can move it. We're talking about quick commerce, so let's be a little quick.
Hello, my name is Manav. My question is to Vikram sir, Arvind sir. So Arvind sir, I'm based from Eastern region and I'm from Mithai business too. and I love Anand's Mysore Pak and almond biscotti. Those are my favorite. But the question is, family is getting nuclear, and the sweet consumption, the people, the diabetic part of it, and the sugar consumption, people are getting more aware of it, and that's a good thing. They're cutting down. Apart from sugar-free sweet, what all steps you think as Anand, what is Anand doing?
You want trade secrets, huh?
No, so I think there's a big game in health foods. There are a lot of natural, like millets. There are so many natural sugars, date sugar, which I think we can look at. And I think the overall the health food snacking business is going to be big. People are more and more relying on health foods. They want clean labels. Ingredients should be clean. If you see the protein business, people are looking for clean protein. So that's going to move to food somewhere. So I think people who are, see, sugar, mithai has some sugar, no doubt. But there are ways of making your mithai healthy. And even your snacking products healthy. So I think we should move towards that. Food will never go out of business. So
yeah, this is a more personal question. Huh? See, you need to talk to him one-to-one.
Hello. Ma'am, you talked about fair pricing. So how do you as a brand, how do you determine what is not, I'm not asking the exact percentage, but how do one comes to determine that this should be this is your fair price? How do one determine their fair price now?
Fair price.
See, it varies brand to brand, it varies business to business. Honestly, the intent that we go out with is how much value can we provide to the customer, right? Like if you're buying a saree for 1,000 rupees, if you were to go to the weaver, at most you'll be able to get it for 850 rupees, right? So we try to keep that low, the margin. Also because if we are able to successfully do that, right? And for you to successfully do that, sometimes you also have to get very razor focused on what is it that you will not do. See, there are 101 brands who will, and the way that I look at this, you can, even with e-commerce, right? There's a lot, like every day we get a lot of these proposals. Listen, I'll do this for your brand 2%. I'll do that for your brand 3%. I'll do this for your brand 1%. Right? Why are you building your own legacy system? We'll give you one order management system, 3%. Right? Cool. It all adds up, right? At the end of the day, now you have to also make some margin to like cover your costs and then plus everything. It will dilute your proposition in the market. Now think about that customer who's buying now with all this 2%, 3%, 4%, etc. and everything, is going, and then another 400 rupees, 800 rupees, whatever it is, shipping cost, everything gets loaded onto it, is paying 1,000 rupees for a 550 rupees saree. What will start happening? All your competitors will start entering the business and say, why do you want to buy from her? Right? We'll give it to you, 550 rupees saree, I'll give it to you for 700 bucks. So, I mean, it's a decision that we took as a brand, and you said you go as low as you can without compromising on product quality, customer service and experience, right? Without compromising on the brand. And then the secret sauce of how you make it work, I mean, that's the daily life and job of a business person.
Thank you.
Sure. More questions in the house? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, we'll just pass on the mic to you. Just a minute.
Just dim the light a little.
Hello. Hi, I'm Shahul. So I just want to understand from an advertising point of view. So what should be the split between branding and performance marketing, right? So to the panel, right? So what should be the split between branding and performance marketing?
If you have a lot of money to spend, you can spend more on branding. Otherwise, everything should be only performance.
I would say at least 2% should go on to performance marketing if you're a strong online play. Otherwise, like Arjun said, branding is, you should spend on branding, make your brand known, make it popular.
I'd say it also comes down to the life cycle of your brand. If you're early, you might want to invest a little bit more. Once you've become a more established name, then maybe there are other ways in which you can spend. You didn't ask this question, but a completely different way of looking at it, right? If you look at everything from an ROI standpoint, what is the ROI of a store a high average selling price item, right? Like a brand that sells that in the airport. They probably don't have any kind of ROI. So why do they do it? Why does Amrapali have airport stores? Why does William Penn have airport stores? Why does Fab India have airport stores? See, sometimes you look at it at a strategic way and say that no, it gives us visibility, right? So it varies brand to brand, but I would say life cycle of the brand also matters.
Yeah.
I think in the early stage of your life cycle, the branding expense should be higher, performance lower. But if you are over a period of time, if the whole thing doesn't flip and performance marketing does not form 80, 90 or 100% of your business, then some problem has happened on your initial branding spend. I mean, if you see the latest annual reports of Amul, for example, they barely spend 1% of their entire turnover, and it's a huge turnover on anything to do with marketing. So it's a lifestyle. So initially a huge amount of branding, and going down over a period of time, performance marketing takes over, maybe in the second or third or fourth year. And
I think it has to be like interrelated. So whatever you're doing for performance marketing can also be done from an influencer point of view as a branding. So therefore it might have an overlap with each other. Okay, before we sort of close, I want to ask this one final question about, how are you globalizing? Are you sort of looking at markets outside India, and therefore is your strategy digital first when you're going to new markets, or are you sort of, going the more traditional way in terms of building stores over there, or looking at partners on the ground, and therefore, or you say that, okay, I'm just going to go and put it on Amazon or whichever is the most well-performing e-commerce engine over there. You have an presence outside India?
Yeah, we export to about 75 countries. We have importers in all of these countries, and about 4 of these countries, UK, the US, Brazil and Peru, we also support our customers with back office help with imagery and product A+ content for their local marketplaces as well. And that's as much as we do, because we have importers everywhere who then distribute our products locally. Some of them have their own e-commerce channels as well, and we give back office support to promote our products in whichever way they require.
Sure.
A significant part of our sales on e-commerce comes from US. We also sell to almost 33 countries through our e-commerce channel. And I remember you asked a question about how much does it form about your business. It is definitely not in points. It is in single digits, but it's significant.
Right.
I think, Ritu, very important question, because you cannot, one way is to look at it at a global scale, to look at expansion globally based on your diaspora presence. And that's a big mistake in my view, because the world is, you've got 1 billion over here and another, 60 odd million outside, but there's a world population of 7 or 8 billion people which is open to you. So I think the concept, for example, today, baklava is competing with Indian sweets.
Right.
You never saw baklava earlier. So why can't an Indian sweet compete with a baklava over there, or a chocolate over there, or something?
And you can pretty much find Indians everywhere,
absolutely.
right?
No, I'm saying not just that, Ritu. You can have a non-Indian buying a Sagan ka laddu, for example.
Yes.
Or for example, why should Nalli not be relevant to somewhere in South America, like Arjun was saying, and make a silk poncho, for example. So here's something like that. It's that's the way globalization will happen, and not just stick to Indian diaspora.
Look at what Elon Musk's mother came and did for Indian fashion. She wore a lehenga for her birthday or something.
Yes.
I mean, that just takes the Indian traditional fashion to another notch.
Yeah. So biggest mistake would be if you rely only on diaspora, there's a whole market which is open right now.
But I completely agree with him on this diaspora thing, because there are a lot of non-Indians who wear kurtis regularly now.
Yeah.
So I can add a little on, in fact, our biggest growth, even from physical stores, has been coming from outside India, right, the last few years. And it's even more peculiar when you consider that Nalli has a completely company-owned, company-operated philosophy. So we don't do franchisees, we don't do any of that, right? So a significant portion of our growth has been coming from international expansions. We have 40 plus stores now. 5 of them are just in the US and Canada, and then like Dubai, Singapore, Australia, London. So, but yes, we are taking the diaspora route. Wherever we tend to find NRIs, wherever we tend to find, because you do have to justify the store as well, right? And so that one person is not enough for you to bear the cost of running a store, right? And the cost structures abroad are much different, right? Real estate is barely anything, rent is barely anything, but labor is pretty high, right? And so there's a little bit of that. Apart from that, I would say this, like, do you follow the offline or the online? I'd say it has to be both, because now online is a very legitimate channel, right? There will always be an audience who wants that convenience. Secondly, you look at our store, you look at Nalli.com, we have around 16 to 18,000 SKUs, right? Out of which sarees itself is around 14,000 SKUs, right? And then you have fabrics and you have dress materials and things like that.
Right.
So, you can't bring that, the power of that, in a physical store. But in a physical store, products like this dual tone sarees, where the color changes depending on how you see it in the sunlight, how you see it, how it moves when you walk, plus lightweight, the feel, sort of the touch and feel of it. As much as we try to replicate it online, it's very different for certain customers. They just want to feel it, right? And I think also shopping in certain categories, the act of shopping itself is pleasurable. So,
Right.
so for that reason, we take a more balanced approach where both these channels are legitimate and they matter.
Sure. Sure. You want to add something?
Yeah, exactly what Vikram was mentioning as well. Bulk of our customers are not Indians. Once they leave India, for some reason they also leave back some part of their tradition, and they expect the Indian products to be the cheapest possible when we export them. So our entire diaspora is local, and incense per se has kind of transcended religion and become a more spiritual and aromatherapy kind of product. So we sell, our highest business is in Walmart US today. Right?
Wow.
In terms of exports, they are the single largest customer that we have. And it is sold to Caucasians and the American diaspora, not to Indians. So
Interesting.
and we have to market to them. So.
You should sell them Astro services also. Arvind, you want to talk about global?
So I think globalization, like you said, if we have to go global, it will be a combination of physical stores and online. Because just going online in a new country may not make sense for a food brand. So there has to be a touch and feel for the consumer. And I have a different take also, like, not going to the Indian diaspora. So I think like how we are westernized, where we eat a McDonald's burger, KFC burger. Can we create a QSR brand which can, have a Europe-wide or a American-wide brand which can, bring in the Indian QSR food? Like a chola bhatura, papudi chaat, whatever, South Indian menu. Can we create that? Why not? I mean, we'd have to get people used to it.
Right.
So like how we've adopted to burgers and everything, can we get the Western world to adopt to our food? I mean, that's one of the a vision, I would say, somewhere that we want to achieve someday.
Absolutely. No, I think this was a great discussion, and I think you've sort of given a window view for everybody who is been into a family business or a generational business to look out of the box and think more creatively. Honestly, I didn't even know that you had Astro services till you mentioned it. So, but I'm now going to look it up, and so we've been trying at Media Desk. We've been researching how Astro services and therefore Astro products have become such a huge vertical which never existed till a few months ago, with all astrologers thrown into it, giving advice and what to do on certain days and not. So so I think that is probably the way to go, and thank you so much for sharing all those worldly insights and talking about your businesses so candidly out here on this platform. So thank you very much for joining us, and please a huge round of applause to all our panelists for